So let's consider the major scale. We're going to use C for our example and number the notes 1 through to 7. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and C is back to 1 again. So if I play the notes C to G, that's 1 to 5. If I was to play the notes C to B, that's 1 to 7. Now we can refer to these numbers as intervallic functions within the scale. So again, if I play the C to G, this is intervallic function of 1, C, to G, the intervallic function of 5. If I play the C to B, this is the intervallic function of 1, C, to the intervallic function of 7, B. Now, of course, there is another B located just below the C where we started, just back 1 fret on fret 2. And this is still the intervallic function of 7. And in fact, any B note that we were to play on the guitar neck, whilst thinking of C as the root note, would also be the intervallic function of 7. And I could also keep going back down through the scale. So if I came down to the A, that would still be the 6, the intervallic function of 6. If I went down to the G, that would still be the intervallic function of 5. So again, here we have the intervallic function of 1C ascending to the intervallic function of 5G. And here I have the intervallic function of 1C descending to the intervallic function of 5G. And these are the same thing. The next thing that we need to know is that by lowering, flattening, or raising, sharpening those numbers 1 to 7 of the major scale, we can use this as a blueprint to find all of the intervallic functions that make up any other chord or scale. As part of the workouts, Solo will present you with a chord or scale and ask you to find intervallic functions in relation to that root note. For example, Solo might present you with a C minor 7 chord and ask you to find the 1, flat 3, 5, and flat 7. So with C as a root note, we would map out the 1, 3, 5, and 7 for the major scale, the 1, 3, 5, and 7, and simply move back by 1 fret the 3 to the flat 3 and the 7 to the flat 7. So we'd have the 1, flat 3, 5, and flat 7. Or in the scale trainer, you might be presented with an E flat Lydian scale and asked to find the 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this time with E flat as our root note, we map out the major scale intervallic functions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we take the 4 and we sharpen it, raise it up by a fret to the sharp 4. So now we have the 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1. Now, for theory reasons that are not super important to get into right now, Solo will occasionally ask you to play a 9, 11, or 13. Now, the thing to know here is that 9 is the same thing as 2, 11 is the same thing as 4, and 13 is the same thing as 6. So if Solo asks you to find a 1, a flat 9, 3, and a 5, that would be the same thing as playing a 1, a flat 2, a 3, and a 5. Over time, this process will become second nature, and you'll no longer need to use the major scale as a reference point. And you'll also see that intervallic functions are an incredibly useful and generic way of talking about chords and scales without referring to specific note names. For more information on intervallic functions, check out the lesson material within Solo.